Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Lights Camera Discussion podcast. My name is Massey1903, and I am joined here today by the resident Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Collective Unit, and Todorov. How are we doing, guys?
I'm good. I'd like to know which one, in your opinion, Massey, which is which. That's the.
I don't know, actually. I would say probably Colley's Ben Affleck and you're Matt Damon.
I was going down that route. I'm absolutely fine with that.
It's fine. Yeah, I'm the same with that. Yeah, that was the correct answer.
I could have said
having just watched The Talented Mr. Ripley, Todd does have a bit of young Matt Damon about him, I would say.
I'll take that.
What about me, guys? Don't say anything nice about me.
Ben Affleck is anyway. So we're talking about Ben Affleck.
Look like one of those monsters in Argo when they're looking at behind the scenes when he's doing all the Hollywood stuff.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it. I think. Well, yes. After all that ribbing, thank you very much. We are, as you say, today going to be talking about the one and only Ben Affleck's movies. Excited to chat about Mr. Affleck, guys?
Very much so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I know we kind of hinted last time that Colley, maybe one of the movies is one of your favourites of all time. We'll also get into that when we get to it. So, without further ado, let's just get into it and just get chatting about our main boy, Mr. Affleck. So again, we're going to be talking about the movies that he directed, not the ones that he was starring in, because we'll be here for years, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first film, his first directed film that Ben Affleck did, was Gone Baby. Oh wait, sorry, I forgot. Colley, do you want to give us a quick rundown about Mr. Affleck before we go any further?
Yeah, it's just a very brief one. This
Good.
It's only maybe a line or two, but Ben Affleck, or Benjamin, his full name, is an American actor and filmmaker. His accolades include 2 Academy Awards, 2 BAFTA Awards, and 3 Golden Globes, rather. He kind of began a lot of his career as an actor with based on Kevin Smith films, and he also was involved in the writing and the starring in of Good Will Hunting before moving into more Hollywood-based roles. Me personally, we can obviously talk about this throughout the episode. In his early career, he was known to be as Jennifer Lopez's boyfriend who acted. But then he moved into his own films in the late 2000s, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Is his 5 films, which it ebbs and flows. We'll just say his directorial prowess.
Fair enough. Thank you, Colley. And it's funny you say that about Jennifer Lopez. I think they're back together, married.
Yeah.
Dating. I don't know. But they obviously both starred in that wonderful film, which I'm sure you've seen, Gigli.
Oh, that's a belter, that.
Yeah.
That classic.
Gobble gobble turkey time. Yep.
Have you not seen it, Todd?
Nah, never. Nah.
Oh, mate. Oh, you should watch it. You should watch it. It's an experience.
Yeah, it might be a 2-time speed job while I'm.
It's up there with Pearl Harbor and Daredevil when it comes to.
Oh wow! Okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, we all know what
you were saying there that we could be here for years talking about his his films and stuff. We wouldn't have to be here for very long when it comes to ones that he's actually good in. And I love the guy. That's me coming from a guy who really, really enjoys him as an actor. But for every hit, there's been 3 or 4 misses, I'll say.
Yeah, well, that's putting it lightly, isn't it? Okay, so let's get into the director Ben Affleck with his first film, which was Gone Baby Gone, which obviously starred his brother Casey Affleck. So how about first thoughts from Todd? What was your first thoughts going into this? Had you seen it before, or was it a first watch for you?
No, so this was a first watch for me. And I was absolutely blown away by it. I think I watched them in the wrong order, and we'll get normally I watch them in release order. I know, absolute amateur hour. Fix the microphone, and now I'm bossing up with other places. But I'm really surprised that, like you say, there are ebbs and flows in his career when he started like this. I think performances wise, there wasn't a weak person in it. Story, I know he didn't we're not talking about the writing and stuff, but story wise, there wasn't a sort of a beat that was missed. There wasn't a moment that was wasted. And this, for me, Ben Affleck doesn't have a really standout directorial style. As in everybody who we've talked about so far, I think has sort of a signature that you can see right the way through every single film they've made. Ben Affleck just seems to be making films like that. He just does it as it comes, and he enjoys what he's doing there and then. But I felt like this one had a very particular style to it that felt quite raw. Like I've never been outside of it. I've been to Florida in America, but I've never been to any of the other states, and I think it gave a real sort of picture of where it was set and the time it was set as well, which I thought was really good. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Colin?
Yeah, I've watched this film multiple times. It's absolutely fantastic. Like you say, he didn't write it. It's based on a book. But I think film wise, he hits all the the story beats that he needs to. The casting, I think, is really, really well done. You'd think, casting your brother, maybe a bit of nepotism there or whatever, but Casey Affleck, I think, absolutely shines in this. As does like I say, the whole cast was really good, but Ed Harris was excellent for me. I thought he was probably up there with Casey in terms of how good he was. And yeah, like it's a very good point to make. All 5 of his films that we're going to be talking about are all very different. The only 2 that become close to each other is The Town and Gone Baby Gone, because they're set in Boston and the surrounding areas. But one's as a kind of private detective / police sided story, and then obviously The Town that we'll get into is the criminal side. So it's a very interesting debut, and like you say, it's he shoots high immediately when it comes to directing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this film. Massey?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with what you are saying. It's a film that I watched when I was younger, but I didn't get it. So for me, it was essentially a first watch, and yeah, it's a phenomenal film. Twists and turns and everything. It's really interesting what you say about bringing out the kind of rawness. I think that for me is when it comes close to like a directorial style, that's kind of what Affleck's really good at doing, is getting out the kind of like grimy like rawness of the setting where he is. I've also not been to Boston, but I know, Collie, obviously you have. In terms of like kind of where you be, because I'm assuming it was more kind of touristy and stuff that obviously you went to compared to this sort of like more residential suburby kind of sort of thing. Was there any sort of things that you could relate to from seeing this sort of like thing compared to where you've been, or?
The accent, probably more than anything. I know it's kind of a bit of a parodied accent, the Boston one, but you could definitely see that. And also, just like from when I was over there a couple of times on holiday, like the Muse would be on, and it seems to be, for a massive city, it seems to be a very well like close knit kind of place. There is a big sense of community. So when you see early on, you see the TV stuff when it comes to the missing girl and that, like. So that's a bit of a morbid thing to say that you see in America, but like there's a sense of community that everyone's like absolutely appalled that this has happened in the community and this girl's gone missing and stuff, and everyone's wanting to chip in and help. And this is more on a kind of general, but I didn't obviously get this vibe, but like as a general thing, there's definitely portrayed in movies at least a massive friction between the police department and the public in Boston. It seems to be like that in a lot of films, and this is just yet another one that kind of backs that up, I guess. When the family of the missing girl that we'll talk about, they go to a private investigator because they don't trust the police to do a good job and stuff. So, yeah, I think, and obviously him being from the area, he is very passionate about it. It's funny. Thought about everywhere and talk about the casting and stuff, but when Amy Ryan was, aka Holly Flack, was interviewing, she did such a good job at the accent that he actually asked her what part of Boston she was from. So like I say, like, all the way back to my original answer to this was like the accent's a very, very particular accent, and there was nobody in it that I thought hammed it up a bit too much for the accent, because I think that can happen. And even in the time that we'll discuss, there's maybe a few culprits of that, more so in that than this. This seems a bit more of a grounded story, whereas the town's a bit bombastic and yeah,
absolutely. I mean, let's kind of just go into the casting then, and the cast that are there. You just spoke there about Amy Ryan. Yeah, a lot of folk, as you say, would probably know her as Holly Flack from The Office, and to be honest, that's the first time I'd ever seen her was in The Office US as Holly Flack. So it was really interesting to see her her performance here, and I even got her nominated for like an Oscar. Like that's insane. Like it's such a wonderful performance. Well, I say wonderful. She was kind of a bit of a scumbag, but in terms of how she acted, I was absolutely blown away by it. I mean, Todd, what was your thoughts on Holly Flack's role as the Moon?
I literally sort of echoing what you're saying about it just being a horrible person. Like, and it feels so strange that even in Boys Afraid, where I know it was that whole scene was wild, but like she was still a caring person. I know she turned on a dime eventually, but like, you know, she was still that nice, caring, like a little bit over the top. And as soon as she was, I know it was on the telly. I think I saw. I didn't really clock it. It was when she was sat in the house, like sat back. Do you know what I mean? Talking like, and the way she was talking to people was vile. But I just think, like you say, it's a testament to how she is as an actress that not only is her accent absolutely spot on, because like you say, if I'd have seen this first, I'd have believed that was her accent. That would have been straight down the line. I think it's interesting to see the turn, and I know obviously we're getting to the end, and I apologise for going straight to the story, like, but at the end where they return the daughter to her, and it's sort of, it makes you question, her performance makes you question that character. That's how good she is. That, like, at the end when they give the daughter back and she's like, oh my God, thank you so much, thank you to the hard work of the police, like, and all this kind of stuff. Is it genuine? And I think that just comes from the performance solely. And she was a surprise standout for me, because when I saw her at first, I was like, oh, this is going to be a nice little bit part for her. Look, it just because of like the way she tries to talk, and then it's a sister, isn't it? Like sort of interjects and becomes a little bit more like to the forefront. I thought it wasn't really going to be her film, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought she was phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny. I don't know if you guys caught this, or like, because I only caught it in trivia after, when right at the end, when the girl is at home and Amy Ryan's going out for her date sort of thing, and Casey Affleck, essentially like the babysitter, he asks about the little toy that she's got, and it's like the wrong name, and that was one of the things where it was like, again, I didn't catch it until I read the trivia on it, but it was like she didn't even care that much about her daughter's like favorite toy. Like she'd given all the reporters and that the wrong name of it and stuff as well. And we didn't actually know it was the wrong name until the kid pointed out to Casey Affleck when he asked about, I think it was at Mirabelle or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it and stuff. But
the doll's name's Annabelle, but the whole time they thought it was Mirabelle because of what the mother had said.
Yeah, and just a little thing like that. It just again, I don't know if it was in the original book or anything, but that just shows like how almost not selfish, but how she truly didn't like have or didn't know everything about her daughter. Her daughter's most prized possession was something that she like completely didn't even know the name of, which I thought was such an interesting point. Sorry, when you go.
I was going to say, just to quickly like jump on the story and that, I don't know if we're going to like jump about from casting and stuff, but what did you guys think of the resolution of the story in terms of from when you discover where she actually is to what Casey Affleck does to obviously at the end when it ends up that she's back with her mum? What because like I say, I've watched this like numerous times, so it's a long time since I've known the twist of the story essentially. You know, but being a first watch for you, Todd, and first watch for a long time, what was your thoughts, Massey, on the story element? I guess this isn't really a Ben Affleck thing. This is more of a film analysis kind of thing, but the way he decided to portray it, I guess, is down to Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was quite a sudden turn, but I did like the way that it was a kind of wrestling, or him and his Casey Affleck and Michelle Monaghan were kind of both sides of the coin, and that whether the daughter should go back to her original her mum, but potentially in a more toxic environment, or whether she stays with Morgan Freeman, the cop guy, in a potentially nicer sort of thing. I thought that was played out pretty well. Again, it was a bit sudden. I think that it could have been explored a little bit more, to be perfectly honest. But I thought it was an effective twist, to be perfectly fair. I just thought it was maybe a little bit out of the blue, and as I say, could have been probably explored a wee bit more in more detail for my eyes anyway. Todd?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you were going. Yeah, for like, I liked it, and I like the fact that it was sort of. I know that, like you say, it's the story side of things. I don't think I get what you mean about it, like being a little bit more explored. But in terms of, I love that it leaves it as a grey sort of thing, because do you go with the decent? You go illegally down the decent family route, or you go legally down the what could be horrendous family route. I love that he took her back. Like I was sort of rooting for him the entire time, because I think he has really specific morals that he sticks to. Do you know what I mean? There's these really specific rules type thing. Like, you know, when he says, I was paid to bring this kid back, I'm bringing the kid back type thing. So yeah, I was fully behind what he did. In terms of how Ben Affleck sort of shown it and stuff, I didn't really have much of an issue. I just think it's interesting, because if that wasn't a cop, and I think it leads into this sort of, do we trust the police, do we not? And obviously we'll come to it later on in other films as well, but like, it's a sort of just because he's a cophead doesn't mean he's above the law type thing. Yeah, so I loved it. I loved it, and I think I need to rewatch it. Not that I'm not saying it wasn't a great film, because, you know, loved it, and it'll be one that I buy on physical. But I'd be interested to know now on a second watch how I feel about it, knowing the twist. Because sometimes I think a bit of recency bias and like all that kind of stuff. You're like, oh my god, like you know, I get really excited with stuff like that, with the twists and things. Am I going to feel as impacted on by the film now that I know that? And I don't know if I will or I won't, but I think that's worth looking at. Just looking at performances and stuff, and just talking about Morgan Freeman's inclusion in this. Obviously, Morgan Freeman's a box office draw. You know, he's at this point when this came out, like his career had already sort of like was already at its peak, wasn't it? Like it was already at its height. I've only ever seen. I've not seen the poster. You know, with where it's Casey Affleck, you know, just on his own on the poster for Gone. But I've only ever seen the that wouldn't be VHS, DVD Blu-ray cover, where it's like the 4 cast members across the top, and it's got like Casey Affleck and, you know, and it's got Morgan Freeman on there. So I was always under the impression that Morgan Freeman was going to be like a massive part of this film. I thought he was going to be in it for, you know, I thought it was going to be him and Casey Affleck solving a case or whatever. It was just something like say, and I get it, posters are posters, and Amy Ryan's not going to be this massive draw, but I just think it's interesting that he's on there, and he's in it for all of about what,
10 minutes?
10, 15 minutes. So yeah, it's just it was just something. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's fantastic in it, as he always is. You know, he pulls out a performance, but I just think it was interesting that there were a lot of other main characters, but to get bums on seats, oh, it's a Morgan Freeman film, I'll pick it up type thing. Something to.
Yep. Collie, what was your thoughts on the ending and stuff?
Like Todd said, it's very much in the grey. I'm actually the complete opposite of Todd when he's saying that he fully agrees with how Casey Affleck does it and stuff. And I think like the way that Ben Affleck films it, where you find out that like the police don't take transcripts, which is the big kind of revelatory detail that then triggers him to be like, oh, you know, the Captain Doyle, Morgan Freeman's involved, and you go there, and then he's like justifying like why Amanda should be with him, and then Angie, Casey Affleck's Patrick's girlfriend's like arguing for that case as well, and she's like, I can't be with you if you do this and stuff, and then you kind of like it's weird. Like Hollywood in general would go, has gone either way over the case of like moral kind of things like this. And I was like, first time I was like, oh well, he's just gonna leave him with Morgan Freeman because he knows how bad the mum is. And then when you realize that the mum's got her again, you're just like sitting there screaming, going, why the fuck would you do that? Because essentially, in my opinion, like she's only ever going to grow up in a household like that, and 99% of the time she's going to grow up and be exactly like her mum and end up on drugs and stuff like that. So I think Casey Affleck's actually done the most important person in all of that, which is Amanda, a complete disservice to put her back to her mum. I know that he was hired to get her back, and I know this and about it all, but like he's ruined that girl. He's ruined that girl's life essentially, because even though she's with her mum and stuff like that, her mum, and that's surmised by her mum not knowing her doll's name and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, and again, I think that because you had to find it out after the fact, Massey, and you only really pick it up. And I'll be honest, I can't remember whether I picked it up back in the day, read it, and then or if I read it after the fact, and then now when I'm rewatching it, I know that detail's coming to pay attention for it. But the way that Affleck shot it, that it was very, and again, I don't know if it's in the book or not. I've not read the book, but it's so subtle, and then it just focuses on Casey Affleck like being. You can like almost see into his mind when the way he's acting, when he's just like, have I fucked up here or not? And in my opinion, yes, his character has, which makes it all the more interesting because the Hollywood ending would have been he just leaves her with Morgan Freeman and he never says anything and he lives happily ever after, and he just doesn't do that. But yeah, just talking about casting, Todd, do you have any thoughts on any of the cast members who you perhaps thought was one person, but it turns out was somebody else?
I don't know what you mean. I'll tell you who was fantastic. It was Titus Welliver. Was so just for context, I tweeted it out. I was very public about it. Legitimately thought that Titus Welliver was James Nesbitt, the Northern Irish actor, doing a fantastic Boston accent in every Ben Affleck film.
James Nesbitt is Bosch.
Yeah. And in my defense, Titus Welliver wears some phenomenal facial hair throughout all of Ben Affleck's films. So, in my defense,
this one especially, this one it is astounding.
It's a proper
what was he? He was filming. I looked this up. He was filming something at the same time, and he wasn't allowed to shave it off or something like that. I'm sure. Let me just quickly check. I'm sure he was filming something at the same time. Maybe it was TV or that.
The Old Man of Steel.
But he wasn't allowed to shave it off for like. Yeah, exactly. He was Superman before Superman's moustache was a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure he just kept it. And Ben Affleck was like, "Yeah, that looks class."
But honestly, and this is why I was just like, everything I've seen James Nesbitt in, I've just been like, yeah, he's a decent enough telly actor. Like, he's not done anything wrong, but he's pulling it out of his ass here. Like,
you were like, how does he know Ben Affleck?
What's circles to them too? But has Ben Affleck done some work for the BBC or something? And that I think
I'm a big fan of Cold Feet. That's what it is.
Is Cold Feet, is that the one that was the Friends rip-off, or was that their one? Or
no, Cold Feet was Cold Feet was about a couple, two couples or something like that. Was it not?
There was one where it was like
Robert Baratheon in it.
Okay.
There was one that he was in.
There was one that he was in that was like a Friends, not rip-off, sorry, but like a Friends, like it was going to be like the UK version of Friends. I can't.
Oh, I'm not too familiar with
I'm sure he was in it. I'll need to find out now.
Honestly, as soon as you said that, Todd, I looked at like photos of them. I was just like, I don't even see how they look similar.
I'll be honest. When I tweeted it out, I was trying to find a picture of the two of them and put them side by side. Be like, they look similar, and there's no photos where they look anything alike. But when they're moving, but yeah. But to be fair, like I say, I was like, holy shit, James is putting in some job. But this Titus Welliver is he's phenomenal in this.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
He is amazing. And again, it's that level of like, he knows when to play it subtle. He knows when to sort of calm it down, and then he can play it big as well, and both work really well. The scene in the bar where he sort of he's telling them exactly what happened, and Ed Harris, Remy, comes in that mask. That, but like, just I knew that was Remy before they said it was Remy, just judged on what Titus was doing. Like, that for me was a big turning point. But I thought, with him being so deceptive throughout it, and you believed him, you know, you were with him the whole way, and he's part of the problem. He was fantastic. I don't know if there's any sort of standout moments, the cast members, if that's where we're going, but for me, Titus Welliver was one of them. Obviously, I know like we said, Ed Harris was fantastic. And maybe it's because I've never seen this bloke before, or like very often. That
I think he's
really
one of those
stuck.
like really good character actors, isn't he? Kind of like your William Fichtner. Fichtner, is that his name? The boy that was in Prison Break season 2. Like
the Bat Manager in the Dark Knight and stuff like that. Yeah, I know.
Like really solid, like character actors that sometimes pull out like incredible performances in a kind of like more in a more backseat sort of role.
There's some of those that are like, you obviously got your leads, you got your support, and they're like the tertiary guys, but they always absolutely nail it. Yeah, definitely. I fully agree.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a really again, talking about the sort of the griminess and stuff that that Ben Affleck's able to do. One of the things that really stood out to me was the house with the couple and the pedo guy upstairs. Like, that was like so like shocking, not just in the actual with what happened, but the actual way it was set. Like, it was such a horrible, it was almost like a haunted house. Like it was dressed up for Halloween or something like that. And even the people as well, the couple, and then the guy upstairs as well, like they just looked like disgusting people. That sounds very like prejudicey of myself. He just looked minging. But like they were obviously made to like be that way. Like they were obviously drug addicts, and like like she was in like a long dirty off-white nighty, just like wandering about. And, I thought it was disgusting, but like so enthralling, really, watching that part. And then obviously, yeah. Also, on you go.
No, go on. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, and obviously, it was meant to be that way because it showed kind of what he was up against and what he was like trying to fight through, sort of thing. So, I thought that was phenomenal, that part. Sorry, Todd, on you go.
No, like I say, I haven't read the book, and I think I'd like to, just to sort of have like a side by side. But one thing that I think Affleck did well is when he's the big sort of moment where he shoots it's Matthew Marr, isn't it? I can't. Corwin Earl, sorry, where he shoots Corwin Earl in the head. Like, that's a huge moment, but then we don't see what happens out.
Oh.
Like gunshots. But Casey Affleck opens the door, and your man's laid there dead. And I just thought that was class. Like,
okay, so apologies about that. My internet shot the bed a little bit. So, yes, we are going to move on to The Town, which was Affleck's second directed film. Now, I know there's a certain person in this chat who would very much like to talk about this film. So let me just hand straight over to Collie. So, Collie, first thoughts on The Town.
So one of the like resounding memories I've got of this when it started being advertised and it's on the posters, etc., is when you see in one of the early trailers, you see them in the nun masks going to rob it, and I find that to be such like an iconic shot. 13 years later since the film released, and for me, I think even on just like rewatch after rewatch after rewatch, I just enjoy this film more and more and more each time. Not only, this is his first film that he's directing and also starring in. He wasn't in On God May Be Gone, so this is a little bit of an extra step towards, or like maybe out of his comfort zone, but also just an extra step towards him as growing as a director. Again, and I think we'll talk about this in every one of his films. In my opinion, it's maybe driven for the fact that he's an actor himself, but every character and every actor that he has within his films, I think, are allowed to breathe and they get like their moment to kind of shine, whether it's like a 10-second thing or whether it's, you know, they're one of the main characters. So the ensemble cast in this, very similar to Gone Baby Gone, like top to bottom, are excellent, and that's even Rebecca Hall. I'm not a massive fan of her. I think like she tends to be like one of the weaker performers in a lot of larger casts like The Prestige and things like that. But in this, I do think she's excellent in this. And then you've got, you know, Jeremy Renner. Like I think like Jeremy Renner for me like blows everyone out of the water in this. He's the star. But then, you know, Blake Lively's excellent. John Hamm's excellent. Just across the board, all brilliant performances. But I'm a massive fan of Heat as well, and this is very much Ben Affleck's, you know, homage to Heat and Michael Mann, and I think he does it absolutely brilliantly. Back to, you know, or sticking, sorry, to kind of Boston as the basis, and Charlestown, etc. So again, you know, accents are on point. Kind of using local knowledge and just like being able to go and research locally, I think really adds a bit of like genuineness to this film. Like everyone's like no character seems to be, you know, too much larger than life. I'd say maybe Jeremy Renner is, but I think that's intentionally so. And just to clarify, this isn't like a Ben Affleck original story either. It is based on a book from the early 2000s. But yeah, I love this film. I could talk about it for forever. But what's your thoughts, Todd? Was this a first watch, etc., etc.?
No, so I think it's only second or third. Like I'm relatively new in comparison. We went to the cinema to see this, and on the day we got there, one of the lads convinced us to go and see Buried with Ryan Reynolds instead. And I'm going to be honest, I still enjoy Buried. Like I still think it's a good film. However, on watching this, I'm gutted I didn't see this at the cinema. I'm devastated. Like I imagine it's one of those films that on a bigger screen would just be, you know, would be phenomenal.
A former friend, then, yes.
Unfortunately not. Yeah, I've kept him around. But yeah, again, like you say, it's so tense from the word go. And like, you know, it's not easy. I haven't made a film, but like, it's so easy to well, we never know. But to make a bank heist or like, you know, tense when people have got weapons and all that kind of thing. So yes, it's easy to start off tense, but the fact that it never lets up, even in like those soft moments where, you know, you say Ben Affleck and Rebecca Hall's characters are together, I'm still sat there going, when is this going to be? Who's going to fuck this up for them? Is it going to be one of them too? Is somebody going to give it away? Obviously, eventually they do find out, but I just think it was so well done, and Ben Affleck, like you say, was a bit of a joke in terms of like in the media, and like, I mean, Team America, when we talk about Pearl Harbor, talk about you know, I need you more than Ben Affleck needs acting school. Like he was torn to shreds. So I think coming into this, I'm really surprised that he was ripped to bits, because a lot of people as well find his directing to be a bit all over the place. I just think it was phenomenal. I feel like I'm waffling because I want to say as much as I can without saying too much about the actual film itself. So I'm going to stop. Massey, what about you?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of differ. I think I did see this in the cinema as well. Because I feel like it came out. Did it come out around about the same time as like Dark Knight and that sort of thing, or
2010? I genuinely, I was thinking about this. I think we might have seen it together. To be honest,
we did. Yeah. That was kind of when I was watching it. I was kind of like, I'm sure, because I think we went and saw Dark Knight a couple of times as well, didn't we? And then I think
yeah, but that was 2008. But yeah,
oh, was it? Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something else. Like it's some film. I think it could have easily sort of change into like the Ben Affleck show, seeing as he's like a director as well as star. But as you say, he really does allow the actors to kind of do their thing, and the fact that so I mean, we'll obviously get on to Argo as well, but his first three films, at least one of that has got a nod at the Oscars. Like it just speaks volumes. Obviously they're phenomenal films that are taken from like a source material, but for him to be allow them to give that level of performance, just also shows that. And I think, Colin, you're absolutely right. I think the fact that he's an actor and maybe knows what works in terms of direction, what doesn't work, and how to get the best out of these folk really helps him out. But yeah, phenomenal film. The version I watched, I think we spoke about this as well, was the extended version, because there's an extended with an alternate ending, isn't there? But it was the extended version to watch.
Yeah, there's three versions of the film. There's the theatrical, there's the extended, and then there's the extended plus a small differentiation at the end.
Yeah. So I'd only ever seen the theatrical version, so it was quite interesting watching the extended and seeing a bit more depth to some of the scenes. So that was really interesting. But again, it didn't deter from how I felt about watching the original theatrical version. I thought it was a phenomenal film from start to finish, really. Collie, thoughts on anything else for this the cast? I know you said actually.
I mean, like we can talk about I guess the overarching story moments. So it starts like 100 mile an hour. They're immediately robbing a bank. They've got these early Slipknot, Corey Taylor type masks with the dreads, etc., with the skulls, and it's very intimidating. And it's funny, they're going through the whole shebang with robbing the bank, and they know exactly the timings of the safe unlocking and stuff like that. And you can already kind of tell the differences within the the two leads of the, not only the film but obviously just the robbers as well. You can see immediately that Jeremy Renner's character is like very got like bloodlust and is very violent and stuff, whereas there's the tenderness of Ben Affleck's character when he just puts his hand on her hand, is just like, just take your time, just open it, you know how to open it, just do it. And then she does it, and then even though he's shown her this tenderness, she still pushes that like silent alarm or whatever with her foot. And I just thought it was a really cool choice in that, like, you can't tell where his eyes are looking with that mask, but you can tell that he's looking directly at her and he sees her do it, and then he just looks up and he's like, we need to go. He didn't go mental at her or anything like that. And then obviously Jeremy Renner's character goes off on one because he thinks the bank manager has pushed the button, or he's blaming the bank manager for one of his employees anyway, and he obviously beats the fucking like shit out of him. And then it cuts to obviously her walking towards the water, because they've released her and just walked her to, like, just keep walking until you feel, is it water on your feet or something? I can't remember exactly the phrase. But she was terrified, obviously, that they're a way to like make her walk off a cliff or something like that, because that's what she kind of talks to John Hamm about down the line. But just like immediately, the dynamic of the kind of bank robbery crew is shown, and then throughout various scenes in the film, it's the chemistry and the kind of friendship and the lifelong kind of loyalty of Renner to Ben Affleck's character more than the other way around is shown. So it's probably one of the more well-known scenes in the film. He's just like, I need your help. What was it? I need your help. We're gonna go somewhere. You can't ask me about it afterwards. And we're gonna beat up some guys. And Jeremy Renner character's just like, whose car we're gonna take. There's no like hesitation or anything like that. And that scene is brutal when they break into the apartment of the guy. And they're just, Ben Affleck's just wanting to intimidate these dudes because they've been causing Rebecca Hall's character a bit of grief and stuff like that in the community. And then Jeremy Renner just goes up that notch, shows him his face, and then shoots him in the leg. Whereas like before they were just punching them for a little bit. So it's just another step towards his kind of manic persona. But for me, as iconic as the whole like last third of the film is in Fenway and that, but one of my favorite scenes in the film is when Ben Affleck's telling Jeremy Renner that he's going to leave, and they're at the fence bit, they're at like the side of the road, and that's obviously where Renner killed that guy that was wanting to kill Ben Affleck when they were younger, and he talks them through, the this is what actually happened, and the guy ran, was it 100 meters or 300 meters or whatever, with a bullet in his heart and stuff. And just like Jeremy Renner in that scene in particular was just perfect. I thought, like the monologue that he delivers about how much, you know, he's done for Ben Affleck, and he knows that that's the only life for him. He knows post prison as a murderer, like all he the end game for him is always going to be like he's going to be killed by police more than likely, or another kind of criminal. And the fact that he's aware of that is really, really cool. So yeah, that's like, and even all the way down to like Blake Lively playing his sister and Ben Affleck's like long term love interest. I thought she was amazing as well. Like the scene where, what's her standout scene for me is probably the bar with John Hamm, where he's asking, like he says that he knows everything about money and he's got the note and he's asking all the questions and stuff like that, and he's just like, this is worth more. What is it again? He says the drugs are worth more than the weight of this, or whatever. The ratio of the weight of the drugs to the weight of the note was the point that he was trying to make. And then she clocks on that he's a policeman, and then yeah, again, even just bloody hell, shifting to John Hamm. John Hamm's amazing as well. Like just top to bottom, like the way that Affleck, sorry, was like, you know, directing them, and it's all like really close, intense shots of them in the bar, and then when like the conversations between Affleck and Renner, like you just feel like you're there, and it's just like Todd said, it's just tense from start to finish, and you know that it's not going to end well. You just don't know how it's not going to end well. But anyway, I digress. I don't know what further thoughts you want to push on to, or what parts of the film, or whatever you want to discuss next.
I was going to say it's really good just listening to you talk about it, because you can obviously tell how passionate you are about the town, and it is a phenomenal film. James Nesbitt is good in it as well. Frequent collaborator with Ben Affleck.
Pete, just on the cat, Pete Postlethwaite.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic as Fergie. One of his last roles before he unfortunately passed away. This and Inception, which funnily enough are probably two of my top 5, 6, 7 films. And he's a major part in both of them. Yeah, I just like when he's talking about like what happened to Ben Affleck's mum and stuff, and like because they have early conversations where it's kind of, he doesn't say it outright, and then when he comes back and says that he's going to quit, Fergie's just like, now you're not, and if you're going to say that, then I'll do what I did to your dad, and basically like drug up and get your girlfriend hooked on my drugs, and etc., and just like so sinister.
It's menacing, isn't it? Yeah.
Fucking plucking roses or whatever he's doing, because he works in a flower shop or whatever. It's just intense. It's super intense.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Todd, I want to hear more from you.
So two of the people that you've touched on, that Fergie and Jeremy Renner's character, like they're not big guys. Do you know what I mean? They're not threatening guys. And I think it's down to Affleck and obviously down to the performances that they're so threatening. Like when in the scene where Ben Affleck and Rebecca Hall are having dinner together outside, and she goes to the toilet, Jeremy Renner sits down. From before he says anything, I'm like, shit, she's gonna, like, genuinely, I thought that was where they sort of reveal themselves and he's gonna do something batshit crazy. I thought it was going to be like a kind of, he knows who she is, and you know that link, and he's going to kick off because he has that sort of he's so volatile essentially. But again, Fergie, like, he's not a big guy, he's not, and like you say, the way he was talking, I believed that he would have done those things. I believed that he was that kind of person. Yeah, John Hamm does a job every single time. You know, if there's a specific type of role that John Hamm does, and I haven't, to be honest, I haven't seen a great amount of John Hamm in things. I haven't seen Mad Men. I've heard it's phenomenal. But like in terms of like Baby Driver, in this, he's a similar sort of charismatic dickhead. And obviously they're on Baby Driver and this, they're on different sides of the law. But like, I just think, like, again, he has that charisma that sort of carry scenes. One of the things I think Ben Affleck does really well, just going back to like the direction, is that he shoots chaos very well. Like I know we're not talking Michael Bay Transformers level chaos, but we're still talking a lot of people running around, like, do you know what I mean? Ducking behind, like the scene, like you say in Fenway, in the car park, like the underground car park, whatever you want to call that.
Car park.
Car park. Yeah. That's the short for this time, not me. Yeah, when you're in the underground car park and stuff, like, that could have been an absolute mess. Do you know what I mean? Of just like quick cuts and stuff, but you still keep that intensity, even to when John Hamm's following Jeremy Renner out, and saying, "Excuse me, officer, can you stop?" He knows fine well who it is. Can you stop, officer? And that slow build. It's still tense, but there's still that build of when's it going to happen, when's it going to kick off. And I think I'm still taken back by the shot of Ben Affleck putting his hand on the back of Jeremy Renner's neck to hide that tattoo. Like, it's there. You know that she knows it, and I was just like, how are they going to get away with it? And it looks so natural from a friend's point of view to do that. But the way it's shot just suggests, did she see it? Has she seen it? And that had me again, like, on the edge of my seat. Yeah, I don't know how much I can go into it because, like you say, Collie, this is one of your top, and I think you've pretty much touched on everything. Like you say, Titus / James again does a great job. Yeah. I think we've touched on everything I want to talk about. Massey?
I just want to say it's really interesting that you said about Heat, Collie, because there's like so much. So like when first I had never seen Heat when I first watched this film in the cinema, but then I had seen it in subsequent years, and obviously watching it here, and I thought that the first like bank robbery scene reminded me of like The Dark Knight. It was very Dark Knight-esque, and I know that the Dark Knight bank robbery scene was inspired by Heat as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So like I could see kind of the references as well. There was also when Jeremy Renner's character is getting chased by John Hamm, and that like there's like cars coming in that kind of get caught in between cars and police cars. That felt very Heat as well, like the expressway sort of shootout as well. So it was interesting catching those little bits and pieces, and
even the hockey mask that Renner wears when they go and intimidate the guys is like the one from Heat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really interesting, kind of catching those bits and pieces. But yeah, an absolutely phenomenal film. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, because I think Collie succinctly spoke about this film.
Oh no, not particularly. One cool aspect is the guy Rusty, who's Fergie's like bouncer guy. Mm-hmm. The guy that sits outside it and stuff, he's got a tattoo on his arm, and that's what made Ben Affleck cast him, because it's the outline of Massachusetts. It's got the Irish flag in the middle, and then it's got Charlestown's zip code in it. It's the tattoo that's on his arm there that you see a couple of times during the film. And apparently, I don't even think I read an article on Boston. I think it was Boston Herald or whatever, and he's not like a real like actor or anything like that. He just goes to like casting calls for like Boston-based things, and I think it was his daughters or something encouraged him to go for this one, and then as soon as Ben Affleck seen his tattoo, he was like, I know exactly what I want to do with you, kind of thing.
Oh wow,
which is pretty sick, because it just adds that, and that's what I was saying with Gone Baby Gone, and this, like, he's from the area, and it just like using people that are local just adds that authenticity.
It's organic, isn't it?
It's like the big drug dealer in Gone Baby Gone, and then like the driver in the bank robbery crew. Mm-hmm. He's like a local, like quite a big rapper in the kind of Massachusetts area. Slane is his name. Mm-hmm. So again, just another legitimate, Bostonite. I don't know if that's the correct term or whatever, but Bostonian maybe. I don't know about that. Like, no. But just like these people that like know the city and probably know people that did this or not did this particularly kind of thing, but like are involved in criminality perhaps or anything like that, just like from where they're brought up or whatever. So just adds that extra level to it. And just another casting shout out, Chris Cooper as his dad is excellent. And the couple of scenes that they're talking through the glass and that, I think really, 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 really cool. Like just portrays like old school, like gangster kind of vibes very, very well. And the whole revelation about Ben Affleck's mum, I was properly like holy shit, that's like, he's only finding out about this now in adulthood. It was never really like revealed to him whether he was in denial about it the whole time or not. But just when he's being asked, how many girls you see on the streets that are nice girls, kind of thing, where we're from, he's like, your mum was just like one of them, and it's like, fucking hell, that's heavy.
It's brutal, absolutely. Okay, doke. Shall we move on to the next film then?
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely
perfect.
Fine to do that. Yep.
So we're taking a wee step out of Boston now, and we're going into
a wee one.
Just a wee one, yeah. Just a little skip along the pond to the Middle East, with the film Argo. Yeah, I mean, again, first thoughts, Todd. What's your first thoughts on this film, Argo?
Yeah, so again, it's not a first watch, but I'm still relatively new to it. I don't know what I've got against Ben Affleck as a director, but I think it's only like a second or third watch. And again, it's one of those films like Spotlight and The Big Short and stuff where it could have been done as dry as sticks. Like it could have sort of lost any tension, very sort of documentary style or whatever. But the fact that Ben Affleck's directed it and just keeps the tension going, but also I think there are a lot of like light moments in this as well. It's not a light film, it's quite heavy in terms of its subject matter, but there's certain performances that I'm sure we'll get to that bring the sort of a level of humor to it, which doesn't sort of cheapen it in any way, just makes it real. And like we say, it's not raw. It's a very polished film. But I do think there's a lot of human moments in it. Was pleasantly surprised by it. I think I don't know why I went into it not with low expectations necessarily, but it was one of those that I'd put off watching. I couldn't be chewed. I thought it was really good.
Colin?
Yeah, like seeing this at the cinema, obviously, like at the time, Ben Affleck was 2 for 2 for absolutely fantastic films, and obviously in the promotion of this, build up to it and stuff, so you were like, fuck, this is really, really different. I think he kind of just excelled. Kind of going back to the point that I've made a couple of times, because it's such a individual, or it's like a people focused story and plot. There's no like frills, there's no action really particularly or anything like that. Like it allows him to proper character study, and I think he was absolutely excellent. It's it's up there with one of his best acting performances. I think is Tony Mendez, the agent, but the ensemble cast, like top to bottom, he's employing actors that are like at the top of their game at this point. Like Bryan Cranston's incredible in it. Alan Arkin and John Goodman are just like the comedy duo that you didn't really know that this film needed. But it's great. The kind of the cuts from Iran back to the States. It's kind of Iran's like super intense. Like when they go to the market and then there's that big argument and stuff, and they need to get away really quickly, otherwise they're going to get noticed. And then it cuts back to like Hollywood, and it's just John Goodman and Alan Arkin fanning about, like doing God knows what. I just kind of think like the balance between serious and a little bit of humor, and the fact that it's based all on a true story, is amazing. I love this film. Similar to his first two, I really, really enjoy it. And yeah, obviously we're going to delve more into it, so that's kind of my initial thoughts. Massey, what about you? First watch, etc.
Yeah, so this was my second watch. I first watched it at for the One Word Film Festival that our good friend Obi runs every year. It was one of the ones that I chose, and as soon as the first watch, I was blown away by it. Like absolutely loved it. Second watch again here, like. This for me is probably my favorite Ben Affleck directed film. I just think it's almost a perfect film. And it's funny there as well, Todd, that you said it's like a polished film. I feel kind of different 'cause it feels so down and dirt. Like you have the handheld footage from the when the embassy's getting broken into, which was actually, again, it was in the trivia I looked at, but it was actually done by actors that were in that part. It looks like it was footage from when it happened, whenever that was in the 80s or whatever. But it was actually handheld cameras that were handed out to the actors that were in that mob. So I think that adds a good bit of brevity to it and stuff as well. But yeah, I thought it was an absolutely phenomenal film, and I think I even enjoyed it more this time, like the second time watching it, than I even did the first time, and I absolutely loved it the first time. I just think it's incredible from absolute top to bottom, absolutely incredible. It obviously was the film his probably most what's the word? The film that got most recognition.
Critically successful film.
Yeah, absolutely. It got a heap of
Won 3 Oscars.
Yeah, including Best Picture as well. And again, even had things like Alan Arkin getting nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role, which was unfortunately up against Christoph Waltz for Django Unchained, which is kind of a tough ask to
a close fought battle.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's very rightfully his most critically acclaimed film. And as you say, again, the cast that he's got and the performance he's got with them is just phenomenal, absolutely unbelievable. Shall we kind of go into the cast then? Do you want to talk a bit more about the cast? I know again, James Nesbitt does pop his head up in the US scenes. Todd, do you want to talk about him and his performance?
Do you know what? For me, like, he was sort of a bit player in this for me, so I'm all right. I think James did a cracking job. But yeah, in the US scenes, like I say, the two that I can't look past, John Goodman and Alan Arkin. You know, I wasn't expecting. I think it's what you said, Collie. Like, you didn't know it needed it. And it could have been quite a dour film, to be honest, if it didn't have that sort of. As soon as I went on Letterboxd after I'd watched it, 90% of the reviews that were on there all had in the description, "Argo, fuck yourself," which, like, immediately, like, I lost my shit at it. I thought it was fantastic. But yeah, I think those two just sort of broke the film down a little bit. I do think. Like you say, it's Ben Affleck's best role in his own films. I don't. It's not my favorite Ben Affleck film, but I do think in terms of his performance, especially in the scene, "What's your middle name?" You know, where he's getting them to rehearse, and he's going over, "What's your middle name?" Right, you're dead. Boom, and moves on to the next person. Yeah, he was ridiculous in this. He was so good. Yeah, but I think it's hard to talk about specific cast members when, like you say, from top to bottom, he is picking people who are in the prime. But like the people who are sort of trapped in the Canadian ambassador's home, like, they aren't big names. Do you know what I mean? They're well renowned actors, but they're not like, he's not got top of the line A-listers in there. And
I've got Morgan Freeman just sitting there doing nothing.
Doing bits. What's your middle name, Morgan? But yeah, he gets performances out of every single person on what is a difficult sort of a difficult cast to pick single people out. So I don't know if there's anybody in particular. Like I say, Alan Arkin, John Goodman's the best thing in every film that John Goodman's in. Like, he's a similar, again, plays a similar sort of role, not all the time, but like, he has that sort of that lightness to him, and yeah, I thought it was excellent.
Well, did you see the bit of trivia about John Goodman, in that somebody who knew John Chambers in real life commented on how good of a job he did playing John Chambers? He even got his limp correct, and John Goodman was like, I didn't even know he had a limp. What did he had hip surgery or something like that, I think. John Goodman was limping because he just had hip surgery. So he inadvertently managed to like replicate this guy's limp or something like that. I thought that was cool.
Insane.
But yeah, so like, just talking about the cast, and like you say, everyone that's kind of in the Canadian, like the trapped people, shall we say, you've seen them all in like different things, and each of them have kind of got their own little moment. Like I can't remember what exact character is off the top of my head, but there's the one that's always like dissenting or negative or like this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna work like the whole time. And just more of like not so much on the acting side of things or in terms of particular performances, but see when they get taken through to that separate room as they're away to fly out, and they're having to like sell the story to the Iranian guards and the soldiers, and then they bring out like the storyboards and they're like fascinated by it and stuff like that for me was like as intense as all the bank scenes and stuff in the town, or as intense as like the drug den kind of pedo den and Gone Baby Gone and stuff. Like it was just the frantic nature, and then it was cutting back to America. Nobody's answering the phone. Fuck, what we're gonna do? And I thought it was, and then they just get on the plane and the soldiers are bearing down on the plane. You're like, fuck, are they gonna get out? And then the plane takes off, and it's like, you know, the big like sigh of relief, or you can just like breathe again kind of thing. Yeah, I would like, as much as I love the town and the town's 10 out of 10 for me, I would probably argue that the Argo's as well directed, if not slightly better directed than the town. I think the town can rely on the kind of bombastic bank robberies and stuff like that as much as it can like the character kind of studies. Whereas this, like you say, Todd, a few times, like this is like it could have been dry as a bone film wise, but he splashed in enough kind of panic scenes like the one I was just talking about, or the little bit of comedic elements, and then just like even the conversations when Ben Affleck's talking to his kid, and that like that's really well done and kind of heartwarming, and again it's all based on real people and these memoirs or whatever of all these people that he's trying to put to screen, and I think he just does a fantastic job.
And I think that's something that's so hard to remember, is that okay, it's dramatized or made a bit more exciting or whatever, but it really happened. Like it's a real story. Like that, like it's absolutely insane. And then even things like Tony not getting any recognition for it, because it was like such a undercover operation and stuff, and like that is just like to put your life on the line for something that you would hope you get something, not that you need to do something for. It's not like always a give take sort of thing, but like you do something to as big as that to then get a bit of recognition from, you know, putting your life on the line for these people and stuff, and not getting that is was insane. But yeah, I think it's so easy to forget that this is something that actually happened, and yeah, it's unbelievable. Such a good film. It's fun. It's funny. Like I know you guys are saying about how it's Ben Affleck's best performance in his movies, but it's the most subtle as well. Like he's quite. I hesitant to use the word monotonous, but he's quite like dour and monotonous in a lot of it. But there's like moments where he runs the show as well, which I was really really surprised me as well, and I think it again shows the difference between the actor that, as you said, Todd, we knew from the Pearl Harbor and as Colin said, but from Daredevil and things, to this more seasoned third film in his directorial sort of career, Ben Affleck, who obviously has obviously learned a bit more and things like that as well. So yeah, unbelievable film. Any other parts want to chat about with that at all? I think we've kind of flown by Argo, to be honest, but is there anything else you guys want to chat about?
I just Bryan Cranston. Sorry, when we were talking about cast and stuff, and like you say, you're picking people who, like Colin was saying, picking people in their prime, and like this was just post Breaking Bad, or while Breaking Bad was sort of airing. It was around
During it and towards the end.
Towards the end, yeah. Like, and you know, Bryan Cranston was known as the dad from Malcolm in the Middle. You know, and he's in this gigantic, you know, with Breaking Bad and stuff, this huge sort of moment and movement in telly. he is just fantastic, and I think it just proves that he can do. He wasn't just a one trick pony with Breaking Bad. I know we're aware of that, and I know we're aware of that now. But at the time, like when Breaking Bad was pitched to me, type thing by somebody who said, "Oh, have you watched it?" and it was the dad from Malcolm in the Middle. Like it just didn't feel right. So he pulled a performance out of his ass. I think he was fantastic. And it just kind of, like you say, it just adds to that sort of list of people that he's got in there. But yeah, so I just thought he needed a mention, a little bit more of a mention, because, like you say, he was the sort of grounding in the American scenes, to the levity of Goodman and Arkin.
One other thing I meant to say as well, the runtime for it, it's like a tight 2 hours. I think it could have easily been, or it could have, someone else could have easily like pulled it on to like 2.5, 3 hour sort of like epic. But he kept it a tight 2 hours, which is such an interesting. And I'm glad he did. I'm really glad he did. I think it could have certainly dragged if it was pulled out a bit. So I think keeping it that tight 2 hours really, really helped it. Collie, anything else you want to chat about with Argo before we move on to
No, I'm pretty much done with it. No, I think we've covered everything that
Okay, perfect.
needed.
Excellent. Okay, doke. So we move on to now. Is it Live by Night or Live by Night? I think it's Live by Night, right?
Live by, yeah.
Live by Night, yeah.
That's fine. Perfect. I didn't want to get it wrong. So we're now on to the next film after Argo. So it was Live by Night, which is, again, starring Ben Affleck as well. A different sort of story, more of a period piece, which was an interesting thought. But yeah, Todd, initial thoughts on Live by Night?
I try not to talk too much about like letterboxd ratings and stuff because it's not the be all and end all. But I went straight down the line with like this being like a 2.5 star film because I just think out of everything he's done so far, it stands out. There's even if they weren't good films, which the previous two we talked about are, there's something about them. There's something different about them. This felt like any other prohibition sort of gangster film that I've seen before. You could literally rip it from any other film, and I was just bored. And I think the worst testament to this film is that I was nervous about talking about this one because there's only one scene I can really pick out. Like in terms of memorable moments, I watched it. It's the one that I watched the longest ago in terms of. It's a first watch, by the way, as well. But I watched it like a week and a bit ago. And I was going to try and rewatch it and just haven't had the time. But it was forgettable. It wasn't horrible. I wasn't sat like, Christ, turn it off. But like it's just very, very forgettable, which is unfortunate considering what we've talked about and what we're going to talk about.
Collie?
Yeah, like I was like really looking forward to this. Period piece, prohibition. Like, how could you really get that wrong? And I don't really know what I don't rate so highly about this film. Like top to bottom again, like all of his films, cast wise, like nailed it. I thought, and there's no like particular bad performance that I can pick out. It was just kind of like forgetful. It was just very forgetful. Like like he was really good in it, and again like the cast was really good in it. But it's just nothing particularly gripped me. I was never really rooting for the main character to come out on top of this kind of gang war or whatever he was involved in, between the two warring factions and stuff. And yeah, it was just fine. It was just a perfectly fine film. Like 2.5, 3 stars. Like watch it, the once, or if like you just want a movie on in the background while you're doing something, chuck it on maybe if it's on Netflix or whatever. But out of his 5 films, it's by far and away his weakest. But I can't really put my finger on why, aside from the fact that it's kind of a one and done forgetful film, to be honest. What about you, Massey?
Yeah, it's kind of the same as you guys. I mean, on Letterboxd, I rated it 2 stars. It just felt to me like it was it was far too long as well. I felt like there was the bones of a really good film in there, but it just on the complete opposite end to Argo, which was a tight 2 hours. It just seemed to slog. Um, I actually kind of think that he was miscast in this. I don't know if it was more of like a I don't know if because of the town and Argo with him being the star, that's why he went as him the main character. But I think it could have actually done with him being even not in it, like just being the director side of things. I didn't think he was very endearing or anything at all. But you're right, about the rest of the cast. You had like Brendan Gleeson was there. We had Chris Cooper again. James Nesbitt turned up. There was like it was a really good Zoe Saldana, Sienna Miller, Elle Fanning. Like there were some really good players in there. But it really didn't do anything for me. It's so funny because I wasn't sure. In the same way that we had Boza Fade in the last. In the Ari Aster episode, where obviously Collie, you really enjoyed it, and me and Todd were a bit not too happy with it. But I thought that maybe one of us would kind of enjoy it, or would potentially have a bit more on the positive side of it. But yeah, I just thought exact same thing. I thought it was one of those where it's like I watched it, I didn't like parts of it, and I wouldn't go back to it. It's just one of those that I wouldn't put myself. Not that it's again not as bad. I thought the period set was fantastic. I thought the production design was unbelievable, and even some of the shots were interesting as well. There was like I said, there was a really good film in there, but I think it just maybe tried a bit too much potentially. So yeah, it was a very, very strange one. So I mean, talking about the acting and stuff. Then again, the one of the things that Ben Affleck is really obviously good at, is spoken about, is getting the best out of his actors. Was there anything that you guys thought didn't work acting wise, or again was it just a case of the story maybe didn't lend itself to the performances that were there? Collie?
Yeah.
Todd?
Sorry.
Don't you go, Todd?
No, I was just gonna, because like you say, I don't think they were bad performances. I think they were a tad hammy at times. I think they were a bit much. But I thought like it's who played the. Sorry, to refer to the paedophile, Matthew Mayer, who was R.D. Pruitt. Like, I thought he was excellent, and I'm excited to talk about him in Air, because like I've not seen him in anything before. Like, I've had a look through his IMDb. He's been in stuff that I've seen. I didn't recognize him from it or anything, but I thought he was excellent. And like you say, Elle Fanning, who I really rate, from, is it The Great? Is that what the TV show is called, with Nicholas Hoult about the Russian king? Anyway, she's a fantastic actress. Do you know what I mean? She does a job. Like you say, I think it's the story, and I think it's him trying to beef out this cool period piece where, and I'm all for long films if needs be. I do think you cut this film down to a 90-minute film and have it where it's hard hitting, it's quick, it's sharp, and it works. Because that's the only thing I can put my finger on. Because like you say, when I'm looking through and I'm thinking about the performances, like you say, Brendan Gleeson does a job, and he's in it for what, 20 minutes, I think, half.
If that, yeah.
I wasn't rooting. I'm with you. I wasn't rooting for Ben Affleck. I didn't care about his character in this either. I wasn't really fussed. Maybe that's a problem. Sorry, go on, Collie. I don't know if you've got anything.
Kind of like off the back of him saying that he was good in the town. Chris Cooper, I thought, was quite good as the chief police officer. And again, like, Elle Fanning was good. Zoe Saldana, I'm gonna just list off the cast members and just be like, they were all really good. One cast member that like fascinated me, and in a good way, in terms of like, oh, good for him, is that Robert Glenister was playing Albert White, and all I've ever seen him in before was the BBC show Hustle. I don't know if either of you's ever seen that. And even then, he was maybe the third rung in terms of within the gang in Hustle. So he wasn't the star of the show or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, he's one of the main antagonists in a Ben Affleck film. It just seemed. I've been trying to sit while we're talking about it, trying thinking what didn't click with me, and it just felt like a very disjointed film. And yeah, it's a film, and yeah, it's fiction, but just some of the stuff that happened, like when they went to the office of or the kind of factory or whatever it was of the guy, and he's the Grand High Wizard of the KKK, and then they just shoot him, and I'm like, I don't really understand it, and even all the way to the end, like when Figgis rocks up and kills his missus and that, I don't know why that had to happen. So just to go back to the town, actually, so the alternate ending, for those that don't know, is that the guys that Jeremy Renner and Ben Affleck go and beat up in their apartment, they rock up and kill Ben Affleck's character in the town, and I think rightfully so. It was cut out because I don't think it would have fitted with the film, and that's what I feel like the end of this film is that he cut that ending out of the person getting their comeuppance, so to speak. He cut that ending out of the town because it was wrong, I think, for the town. But this, he was like, nah, I'm going to leave it in. Whereas, if it had just been ended with happily ever after, it would have been absolutely grand. It would have been fine. I just don't really understand Chris Cooper just rocking up and getting his so-called revenge on what happened to Ben Affleck's character, because he showed some rude pictures of his daughter when she was in Hollywood high on heroin or whatever the fuck it was. It disjointed is probably the best kind of word I would use for this film. It's kind of component parts more than happy with. Story pretty weak, but just it just wasn't very cohesive. It wasn't very it was just fine. It wasn't very good. It was just adequate, And for having three films like that, and to come off the back of Argo, that was a three Oscar winner, to this was just a bit of a letdown. And I felt like because I went to the cinema to see this, because loved its three films, and was just kind of a bit after it, going well, I never probably will watch that again. And I've had to watch it years later for a podcast, so.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Hey, Ben Affleck was my choice as a director, and knowing fine well I'd have to watch this, so that's on me. That's a self burn,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the things as well that it didn't work with it was very cliched, wasn't it? The writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was at points the most cliche stuff you ever seen. I wrote down some lines because because they just felt so hilarious to me. I think it was the last line, actually. He was in the cinema with his boy, and there's the news that come up about Germans, and there's something about Hitler, and his line, he just says, "I don't think they'll fight another war though." And it's what is that added? It just felt so
strange.
Yeah, so stupid. Another line. What do you think I was going to do? Run. That's what people do. It's not what I do. It was just so weird.
See if this was his first film, and then he went on to do the other three, that'd be fine. But the fact that it was straight from Gone Maybe Gone, it's he's ascending as a director, getting better and better and more acclaimed, and then this just falls off the cliff.
Yeah.
It lost about $75 million.
Really?
In terms of its budget and its advertising and stuff like that. So it was a big dud. A big downer and a big dud. Yeah. Not that means everything and stuff, but it just shows that people weren't going to see it more than once at the cinema, and
it didn't resonate.
It wasn't really getting highly regarded critics wise or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. There was also just one last line as well when he shows the picture that has Sienna Miller's character in it. And he shows it to someone. He goes, "I took that picture a month ago," and then someone says, "Oh, why?" He's like, "Because that woman died in 1927." What was that all about? It was just insane, absolutely insane. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Collie. For someone to go from the 3 picture run to this is so disappointing. For him to actually, to fart out this.
I was looking at some of the quotes of some of the reviewers and stuff. So there's this guy from Variety. This resonated quite a lot. It was like, it's like seeing the ghost of a terrific movie. All the pieces are in place, yet as you're watching it or thinking back on it afterwards, there doesn't seem to be quite enough there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. It's kind of it's derivative a little bit, and it's just forgetful,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm absolutely fine to move on from this one, you guys.
Yeah,
just quickly before we do, I was just having a look. No, I'm taking this. Just have a look through IMDb there, and it's interesting that this is the one where there's where Ben Affleck is writing, and there are fewer writers. So he's billed as the main writer, of the film. Everything else has it. He's either in the middle or there's 3 or 4 people writing, and it might be that he's just not the best writer in the world. I don't know if that's
sort of linked. That's Good Will Hunting, mate. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fair play. Yeah, absolutely. I'll shut my mouth.
Absolutely, because that was something that, and we spoke about this as well. It's something that I did as extracurricular work for this podcast. Was I'd never seen Good Will Hunting before, but I wanted to watch it kind of from like a writing perspective, because obviously I knew it was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, you two, of course. And I think it's harsh to call him, or to insinuate that he's a hack writer like you're doing there, Todd. Because
don't you be throwing around the word hack after your shenanigans lately.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Leave my Marty Scorsese alone. An idiot.
Overrated hack. Anyway, yeah, because I think like in terms of writing, there's something to do with writing. There's absolutely something to do with writing, and whether that is that it's
Just to clarify, I'm not disagreeing with you, Todd, that it's a poorly written film, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's maybe not a good writer of films.
Yeah, it
maybe just not this type of film or something.
Yeah, because have you seen The Last Duel as well?
Yes.
Because I thought it was shite, and again, I think it was largely down at the right. No sugar. I didn't think it was a missed opportunity, or I thought it was horrendous, boring and everything. And he's written on that. Maybe it's like say a certain type of films where if he's working on something that's real or whatever, where something a bit more period piece doesn't work from. I don't know, but it does seem to link ever so slightly.
Fair enough. Right, let's move on to.
I'll save my thoughts on The Last Duel for the Ridley Scott podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm not going to say what I just did there. It's all good.
No. Did you think he said Jewel as in J? Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, with that accent, that's what I first thought you said. I was just like,
I was like, Lois Joel? How do you spell that? No.
Jesus Christ. Like Dylan Ben the Flower Pot Man. Like, what do you mean? Typing in fucking Flobadov and stuff like that. To fucking Google. What do you mean? I'm all for slagging off Todd's accent, but that's wild, that one.
Oh, apologies. I'll cut that out.
No, you believe it.
No, The Last Duel, because it's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, isn't it? They're the kings or whatever. Yeah. Anyway.
With horrendous wigs.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so moving on to the fifth and final film of his directorial filmography, and it is Air, the film about a shoe. Now, thoughts on this one then. First thoughts on this one, Collie.
I want to hear your thoughts on this first.
Okay. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Like, again, from when I first saw it, when it first came out on Prime, I think it was on Prime, wasn't it?
Not Apple.
Streaming service. The streaming service that it released on. Absolutely loved it. Like
it's Amazon. It is Amazon. I'm wrong.
Okay.
I thought it was Apple.
No, that's Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, that's right. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Less said about that, the better.
Both fantastic films.
Yeah, when I first saw it on Amazon Prime, loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's one of those that, again, the subject matter could be like really droll, and it's a really strange sort of subject to go on, but I thought it was so well made. I don't know, this is where I'm really interested, because I don't know if it helps that I'm a big fan of basketball, and if that kind of like swayed me a bit as well. But I thought like it was directed really, really well. There was nothing really flashy as such, but I thought it was incredibly well directed, and I thought the writing, which is really interesting because it's like his first ever. The guy who wrote his first ever film that he wrote, I believe. So that was super interesting. But I thought again, it's a common theme with Ben Affleck. The cast, the ensemble cast were absolutely outstanding, absolutely outstanding. Collie, thoughts?
Yeah, I loved it as well. I thought Matt Damon was absolutely incredible as in the lead role, but as Ben Affleck playing Phil Knight in all his quirks and stuff, I thought was fascinating. I know Todd wants to talk about him a fair bit. Viola Davis as Jordan's mum, I thought was fantastic as well. I can kind of probably about 50% of her filmography I can rate, and 50% of it I can't, and a lot of it does come down to her because she's always quite stoic in quite a lot of her roles, and sometimes I think it's very effective and sometimes it's not. Having watched The Last Dance multiple times since its release, so the Netflix documentary about the last Chicago Bulls season with Michael Jordan there, etc. There was quite a lot of focus on Michael Jordan's like family and that, and his mum being such a pivotal and influential figure. So I think the way that Viola Davis played his mum and how involved she was is obviously based on real life, but it just kind of backs up everything that was being shown and said in that. So it was really good to see that in kind of, although albeit like fictional form. It was fascinating to see that kind of in effect. And massive shout out to Chris Tucker in this, by the way. So good to see him in a film again after a prolonged break where I've not seen him in a long time in any kind of major role like that. So I thought he was good. Jason Bateman was really good in more of a comedic role, but a kind of dramatic comedic role, a bit of comic relief, but rather than just stuff like Horrible Bosses, I thought he was really, really good. As well. So yeah, top to bottom, as we've said about pretty much every film, even Live by Night, like cast wise, I think it's excellent. And yeah, Matt Damon, probably one of my favorite Matt Damon performances, I would say, and he's got a lot of them, So yeah, that's kind of my initial thoughts. Todd?
Yeah, so I'm not a big basketball fan. I've watched The Last Dance. I know I have limited knowledge of like the big hitters, and I think it worked for me. Like I loved it. It's a rewatch for me, and I was excited to go back to it. Like you say, cast. I think even like getting a performance out of Marlon Wayans was excellent. Like just as somebody who we know from like scary movie films and White Chicks, and like it was such a believable, and like he was endearing in that 10-minute little thing in the bar, whatever. And I think like the whole the bit at the end where like it goes through what each person did and how they ended up and stuff. I think what Affleck's done really well is he's managed to give like you say that was it the town where you said that each character gets their time to breathe. Each character has that time. Like each person, and obviously this comes down to the writing as well, but down to the direction as well. Each person has that moment, and it's like they're pivotal. Because to be honest, Marlon Wayans his character didn't feel all that pivotal in the story. Like it was a good conversation, it was interesting, and it didn't feel like he had a lot to do with the deal. But it was given that real person the respect, and I think that's the other thing, is that it give everybody who is a real person that time and the respect that they deserved. I thought it was class. Like you say, I think Jason Bateman again was just playing classic Jason Bateman, that sort of like sarky, like, and that isn't a negative, by the way. That isn't me dragging him down. It works. What and why fix what isn't broken type thing. Yeah, cast excellent, really well directed. I love the 80s shots as well. I love like the like people putting a cassette in a cassette player and shutting it, and like all that kind of thing worked really well. And yes, before we move on, Ben Affleck's leggings, running leggings. I think it's like Lucozade. It's one of the pink Lucozades at the minute is coloured in the same sort of same sort of colours, and that's immediately where I went. I was like, they're fantastic. If you haven't seen the film, just Google, I don't know, Ben Affleck Air leggings. I'm not big on 80s fashion, but I want a pair of them. I'll be sourcing some. Might wear them for the next episode.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, I'm excited.
One cast member who I actually didn't mention in Live by Night because I didn't think he was very good was Chris Messina. So he plays David Falk. He plays David Falk in this, the agent, and I think he's so good. Like the arguments that him and Matt Damon have over the phone is hilarious. And his reaction, obviously, to when the deal eventually gets done, and that. And then there's the whole kind of thing about him, like, oh, when I sell my company, it'll just be me sitting on my own. And then there's the at the end of like a lot of these films, it tells you where everyone was and what happened, and that it's like. Sold his company for 100 million and he ate alone that, or he was seen eating alone that night or something like that. I just thought that was really cool.
It's funny because I think I read somewhere that him and Matt Damon's like phone conversations were improvised largely. So like when he's like screaming down the phone at him, it's like mainly just improvisation, and Matt Damon is then improvising to the improvisation, which is
I've seen him in stuff like the Newsroom and that. Like he's a good actor, but I forgot to mention in Live My Night, I thought he was one of the weakest kind of characters, but I think that was more like his character rather than his performance, because he was, Ben Affleck's like right hand man or whatever in it. He was kind of a bit forgetful, but in this, he reminded me. I don't know if either of you have seen Entourage, but he reminded me of the agent in Entourage, who's like so over the top and shouty and sweary and stuff like that. He reminded me very much of that, so it wouldn't surprise me that what's his name? Is it Ari? No. I can't remember the name of the agent in Entourage, but it wouldn't surprise me if he based his character a bit off of David Falk just by this portrayal here. Because I'm just trying to think, obviously, timeline-wise, if this is based on the real guy, it's back in the 80s, and then he filmed Entourage, obviously, in 2000s or whatever. So, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure we gave him a shout-out because he was excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a really cool moment that's kind of paid off at the end as well, is when it's after the draft, but then before, when they're choosing who they're going to go for, Matt Damon buys I think it's like Sports Illustrated in the convenience store.
Oh, that's right,
yeah, and the guy behind the counter is like, oh yeah, Jordan's nothing. Like I think he was talking about like Hakeem and stuff as well. And then at the end, he goes back to that store, and the boy's like, yeah, I knew Jordan would be the one, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it's so like, it's a perfect encapsulation of sports fans. Yes. Like they always think they know the best and are unwilling to, this obviously the majority of sports fans, unwilling to actually hold their hands up and be like, yeah, I was wrong with that. Like it's always like, yeah, I knew it. I knew that was going to happen. I knew he was going to be great. Like I knew Tom Brady was going to be the GOAT when they chose him at, what was it, like 62nd or whatever it was.
199th.
There we go. Like I thought that was a fantastic piece of writing, and I think, as I say, it totally encapsulates what probably 99% of the audience watching that film are guilty of, or were guilty of.
Talking just a writing and performances and that speech by Matt Damon, like if that when they're in the boardroom and he's talking to Michael about how he's going to ascend the sport and stuff like that, like if that is like pretty much what that guy said in that moment, then it's unreal. Like if there's no kind of fictional, kind of bigging up of that speech or anything like that, it was amazing. And again, going back to The Last Dance, and you see how driven Michael Jordan is as a person. The fact that like Matt Damon was one of the only people to see that. Yeah. Not like maybe within basketball, some people seen it about Michael Jordan, but the fact that he was able to tell, and it's the analysis of that final shot. And is his high school or his college?
College, yeah.
College, sorry, yeah, when he wins the championship. Like he knows he's getting the ball. He knows he's getting the ball. He's out to make the biggest shot of his life, and he's so chill. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he could like see all that, like, and not very many other people could, was fascinating. But that's why Nike had him as the kind of role that he was in or whatever, and obviously it paid dividends for him.
I mean, that scene gives me goosebumps every time when you can see Matt Damon realize, like, I mean, like he's like rewinding it again, like watching it again and seeing it, and then when he explains it to Jason Bateman, I think that's brilliant. One of the things I really thought was super interesting and a really brave sort of thing as well was not showing Michael Jordan, as in like,
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, you only see like him as like almost a background character behind his parents and stuff as well. I thought that was a really interesting, important choice as well. Ben Affleck in interviews has stated that Jordan's one of these guys that transcends sport and everything. So no matter if you knew basketball or not, if you're watching it, you knew it's Michael Jordan. If there's someone cast as him, you'd be like, well, that's not Michael Jordan. So that was a decision to just have kind of like the back of his head, or like him playing with the.
And I think it works story wise as well, because again, you presume that this is all based on true kind of accounts, and that he was so disinterested in the process. So why would he be in the process, like in the film, if he wasn't interested in it in real life? So he's on the outside because he was on the outside of it at the time as well. He wasn't speaking to Nike. Like, if they were shown in the film that he was on the phone to fucking Sonny Vaccaro and stuff like that, and that never happened, it would completely cheapen it. So for the fact that it was kind of his mum was the kind of driving force behind, and then obviously the agent, and then the other companies. One moment I thought was funny was Matt Damon dissing Adidas, and he was just like, because Adolf died, they won't be able to decide who's in charge and stuff, and they show that meeting of them arguing in German and stuff like that. I thought that was fascinating, because there's it was kind of a bit on the nose, but it kind of just shows, it zooms in on Viola Davis noticing that they're arguing. Yeah, and I was like, oh well, there we go. That's her noticing that he's maybe not full of shit after all.
I would say the Converse one as well, where he says he'll be wearing a Rolex, and he'll say that he'll be wearing a Rolex, he'll have his hair slicked back, he'll talk about the other, like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, I think it was at the time, and then he was telling her to just ask what will they do to make him stand out, and then they're like, straight away they're like, oh yeah, he'll be in the roster with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and we're talking about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson here. And then it just shows, like, again, as you say, Matt Damon's character was totally on the money with everything, and yeah, the fact that Nike were able to pick up with the fact that Michael Jordan was and is a complete a figure that transcends like sport and everything, was just amazing. How about Mr. Pedo Guy as the as the shoemaker? I think Todd, you want to talk about him?
Alleged pedo.
Yeah. So again, like, I don't know him from a lot, and he piqued me interest in Live by Night, and like I say, it was his death that was one of the moments that really stood out, and to see him come back and be such a big figure in this film, and I think maybe it gives it a little bit more sort of impact that it's Peter Moore, isn't it? I've literally Peter Moore.
Yeah, it is.
He died just before the production of the film and stuff. So I think that maybe impacted me a little bit more, that he didn't get to see himself up on the screen or whatever. But I just thought, for somebody who's so passionate about a specific subject and so like hyper fixated on it, that like he played it so well. He could have, like you say, hammed it up to the max and been like over the top weird and strange about it, but he wasn't. He was this guy who just loved trainers, just absolutely adored trainers. And I just think it was a nice sort of little, again, he, like Marlon Wayans, that could have been a quick aside. That could have been like a montage of, somebody putting loads of designs of shoes in front and then going, we could call it Air Jordan. And, and they could have cheesed the max out of it, and they didn't. They give that character time, and I just thought he was excellent because he found that right level.
Absolutely.
Do you know he created the Adidas mountain logo as well?
No way. Nah.
Yeah, so not only did he create one of the most iconic, sporting brand logos in the Air Jordan, the Jumpman logo, but he created like the mountain, because it used to be like the flower shaped Adidas is like the Adidas originals, but now it's like the three slants in like the mountain range. He came up with that, which I thought was quite fascinating as well. Obviously, they're not going to do that in a film promoting Nike, or tell you that. But you look on his Wikipedia and stuff; he came up with that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
some creative mind that.
I think he went to Adidas not long after, didn't he? Like not long after Jordan.
Oh, I didn't actually see his like career track or whatever, but I just seen that.
Yeah.
He did.
it was interesting as well that they spoke about the fines. I thought that was an interesting point. How they added more color onto it to make it even so unique, and then covered the fines, and the fact that Matt Damon's character didn't tell Phil Knight at all until the boardroom meeting as well. Like, I thought that was just brilliant.
And then they like sold it and stuff, and they were like all celebrating, going, "That was amazing." He's like, "What's this about the fines again?"
Yeah. I just thought it was brilliant. And again, this is where I think Ben Affleck, either, when he's starring like Town and Argo, fantastic. But when he's taking a little bit of back seat, which maybe we should have done with Live by Night, I think it just allows everyone else to kind of get the spot, and him to focus a bit more on the behind the camera side of things. But I thought he was fantastic. Like, I'm not knocking him at all. I thought he was great as Phil Knight. One of the things about the Peter Moore, the shoe guy, was when you have like a throwaway line where they see him outside skateboarding and Ben Affleck's car.
Yeah, that's right.
I was in absolute knots.
When they're down in the shoe lab and he's like, was that you skateboarding in the car park? You'd think it was some sort of like going to be a massive conversation. He just goes, yes, okay, and then they just get straight into it. Like, brilliant.
Oh, it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I thought it was a phenomenal film, and I'm so glad I got to watch it again. I'll probably have watched it at some point in the near future, but I'm just glad I got to watch it again so soon after watching it the first time. Is there anything else you guys want to chat about with Air, or how are we feeling about that?
I'm good.
Not necessarily from the film making, but just in terms of like as a film. Like, I think it is important that it's not just a film. Like you can see the importance of Spotlight. You can see the importance of The Big Short. Like, this isn't like, it is just a film about a shoe, but like when they're talking about what like that it's changed the way athletes are treated from companies and stuff, and the fact that Michael Jordan, it was one of the first things I said when like I'd finished the film. I was like, Michael Jordan just passively makes $400 million a year. Like, he does nothing. I mean, obviously he has done a lot. He deserves it, but like passive income is $400 million. Like, it's
Same.
huge. And it was just fascinating. It was just that's what, like, I think it's like amazing that we can see a film about a trainer, but that it's got so much more underlying. I'm pleased that Affleck give that, even if it was just a sentence at the end or a couple of sentences, I'm pleased that he give it that sort of time to look at that and think about that.
Absolutely. Okie doke. I think we're done with Air. How about you guys think? Yeah? Perfect. Okay, so that is Ben Affleck's directorial filmography. So just a bit of reflection. What are we thinking in terms of the ratings? 1 to 5 for, I'll say 5 being the least enjoyable. I think that's probably going to be a pretty unanimous sort of thing for his films. But yeah, 1 to 5. What's your thoughts on ranking his films? Collie first.
Probably The Town first. Yeah, no, the Town first, and then I'd probably go Air, Gone Baby Gone, Argo, and then Live by Night significantly behind the others. I think on Letterboxd, which I'm using now, guys. Letterboxd,
What's your handle?
I gave it's just collective,
Oh, okay.
I think I gave The Town, like, is it out of 5 on Letterboxd? Yeah. I gave that 5, and then I think I give Air, Argo, and Gone Baby Gone all 8s, and then just Live by Night 2.5 or something like that, maybe.
Fair.
So like the 2 to 4 for me can be intermittently changed, but I think through talking there and just like, I think Air is probably the most enjoyable out of the kind of 3 middling ones there, for not middling in a bad way, but the middle ones. Like Gone Baby Gone's like really heavy. Argo's in the middle, and then Air's just a laugh all the way through. It's the most fun, I'd say. But for me, The Town's a masterpiece, so far and away number 1.
Fair. Todd.
Yeah. Like you say, I think the 4 are pretty much interchangeable. I'd still put The Town as my top. The Town, Argo, Gone Baby Gone, then Air. And the only reason I think I'd put them there now is just because, like I say, I haven't watched Gone Baby Gone as much. Maybe on a rewatch, it'll be different with Live by Night at the bottom. But The Town will always be at the top. I think The Town will be my favourite of his. And then the other three sort of, but aren't that far below. Aren't that far below at all. And then unfortunately, Live by Night at the bottom. Massey?
Yeah, I mean, Live by Night is clear, clear number 5. I think the top 3 for me are kind of the closer ones. So I think for me, though, like my favorite is Air. So go Air, then Argo, then The Town. But again, that's like close. Like it's not as if it's like a big. They're sort of big. I like for clarity's sake, I gave Air and Argo 5 stars. The Town 4.5. And then Gone Baby Gone would be below The Town for me. And then Live by Night would be bottom for me, I think there. Okie doke. So is there anything else you guys want to talk about Ben Affleck wise? Are we happy enough that we kind of covered all the bits and pieces? Do you want to talk about James Nesbitt a bit more in our half hour or so of him?
We'll set up a Patreon just to hear about James Nesbitt. My comparisons between James Nesbitt and Titus.
That actually sounds riveting. Well, what you can do actually, you can write it and then I'll do it in the Geordie accent for you. That'll probably work the best, I think. While Todd dies of a coughing fit.
I just quickly checked there. I can't really see much in terms of like what's next for him. In terms of upcoming projects and stuff. I normally would try and be like, oh, we're gonna be excited for this and this. There's a couple listed like that he's producing, but there's no directorial stuff that I've seen, unless I'm mistaken.
On IMDb, there is 2, just as in development: Witness for Prosecution and Keeper of Lost Cities. But I mean, that's just in the director part. I don't know if there's any dates or anything for them, or not that I can see, to be honest. Nah, not that I can see.
Last thoughts on Ben Affleck is that he was the bomb in Phantom. Yo.
I think that's a good place to end it.
Affleck, you the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. But guys, thank you so much again for chatting about Ben Affleck here. The next person that we'll be chatting about, the next director that we'll be discussing, is actually going to be was it a 2-parter? I can't remember.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, we're gonna have
you did. Yeah, of course.
Unless you want a 5-hour podcast.
Well, yeah. I mean, the people probably do. We could do 2-parters and then we could release it all in like an uncut, like.
No, you can just listen to them. Far more digestible.
Yeah, fair.
Anyway,
so the next director that we're going to be chatting about, we're going to be chatting about. So I'm doing the Geordie accent again. We're going to be talking about is Denis Villeneuve. I'm really excited for that one. Really excited for that.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Or like 2, sorry, apologies. But guys, thank you so much for listening or watching, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. Please remember to subscribe below. And of course, if you're on Spotify, click follow and let us know what you thought. You've also got a Twitter as well, or an X at LCD Pod. So please let us know your thoughts on there. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Cheers.